Hi, do you want to draw a rose but don't know how? This video is for you. I will break down the easy steps to draw a rose. By the end of this video, you will be able to draw a rose like a pro. Let's get started. What you will need is a sketchbook, 1 or 2 pencils. So I use 2B and 4B pencils for better value contrast. You also need a pencil sharpener or a cutter and an eraser. I have 2 erasers, 1 soft big eraser and 1 harder eraser for highlights. You can also have a stamp or tissue paper for softening the edges and shading. I thought I would use it, but then I decided to keep the lines visible, and as I don't want to make my rose look too realistic. It's up to you to choose your style. Before drawing, I sharpen my pencils so I will have a very small and sharp tips. It's easier to control the lines when the tips of the pencils are small. We'll draw an oval as the top hat of the petals. Next, draw 2 lines from the oval to create a cylinder with the bottom bigger than the top, and we will add 2 lines at the bottom to create a shape that looks like a glass of water. We are trying to create a general shape of a rose before adding more details. Now use straight lines to draw smaller shapes of the petals. If you have a reference photo, that would be great to see the shapes rather than imagining them in your head. So I'm creating smaller shapes of the petals and try to stick with a reference photo. Unfortunately, I didn't save this reference photo in my computer, so I couldn't show you today, but next videos I will remember to add a reference photo. So sorry about that. So I'm trying to separate and define where the petals should be, and I'm using just straight lines. We don't need to make it too beautiful or too soft at this time. The purpose of this step is just to know where to put things together to create the composition of the rose. A rose, when it blooms, it will have some petals open, and the petals will not follow the cylinder shape that we created from the beginning. So we can just add some shapes of the opened petals. Always check the relative size of different petals and their directions based on the reference photo. Sometimes we forget about how the petals relate to each other and the general shape of the rose, and we end up having a rose that looks very off. In step 2, I use a 2B pencil to soften the shapes with wavy lines. This makes the petals look more natural. We don't need to stick too much to the reference photo by every millimeter. You can draw soft lines loosely and quickly. We can draw a very soft thin line to mark where the petals fold, but it should not be a thick and strong line. Although I follow the reference photo pretty precisely, but I think that the stem looks a little bit weird when it's not in the center from the cylinder, so I decided to move the stem to the middle. I draw the leaves for the rose to make it more interesting, although my reference photo doesn't have the leaves. So the leaves of the rose have a bit round shape with a pointing tip. They have sharp edges, and the leaves are symmetric, so they grow opposite to each other on the stem. The red roses will not have thorns, but roses in other colors usually have thorns on the stem. So I know all of these by observing and seeing more reference photos. You can also Google to learn more about the anatomy of a rose, so it will help you draw a more realistic and more accurate rose. After having the shapes of the petals and the leaves, I used a very sharp eraser to erase the sketch, the straight lines I sketched from the beginning, so they will not be visible on my drawing. If in previous steps you draw very thick lines, it will be harder to erase this time, so make sure you draw very light from the beginning. Next, I still use the 2B pencil to add more details for the leaf. For example, the sharp edges, and also make the tip of the leaves more pointing. After all the details are sketched, then we will be ready for the next step, which is shading. If you like this video so far, subscribe and hit the bell button as it's a huge support for my channel. Thank you! Welcome back to my tutorial. By now you already have a beautiful sketch of a rose. You can either start from here, start coloring the rose with the crayons, or keep watching to learn more tips that I have for shading the rose with pencils. The shading will add more shadows and lines to the rose, which make the rose even more impressive. So there are different ways and different styles in shading. The most simple way is to use thicker lines to represent the shadows. But I will show you a more fancy way. So to do this, you have to hold the pencil very loosely so you can create long, light lines. Move the pencil from left to right using your wrist, and then move your arms slowly to create the parallel straight lines. Don't put too much force on the pencil because we want to add darker lines in the next step. Start the pencil strokes from the darkest parts of the petals to the lighter parts, and press the pencil a bit when you start and reduce the force in your hand when it moves to the lighter side. So the end result should be separate and parallel lines. The lines should not overlap each other. To add more shadows to some parts of the petals, especially the space between the two petals where the light cannot reach, then you can add another layer of thicker lines in different directions from the previous layer. Double check with the reference photo for the accuracy. Now I changed to a 4B pencil to increase the contrast of the rose. There are different kinds of pencils in the market, such as 8B, 2B, 4B, 6B, even 8B. So when the number is higher, it's softer and it's also darker. So it's up to you to use different kinds of pencil for even more higher contrast for your drawing. So now I'm just focusing on where it's darker, like the shadows of some petals. I don't overuse it. I don't put shadows everywhere. Try to create clear lines so your drawing or your shadows will not look messy or muddy. You can use the eraser to get back the highlights for the petals if you accidentally put too much pencil on it. And that's the tips that I want to share with you today. I really hope that the video can help you draw a rose better. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel to get more tips in the next videos. Bye for now.